Alright, you bastards, this is Some-Belgian-prepper, and today we're going to talk about all the survival uses you can do with a deck of cards. But before we proceed, if you're interested in survival courses in Belgium, take a look in my description to my website for survival courses in Belgium. Also to a link to my book called Bloody Crosses. It is a detective story in Dutch, so take a look, I would say. Alright, a deck of cards. This is often underestimated actually. With a deck of cards, there are so many things you can do. First of all, I would say entertainment. If you are on a bug out scenario or a survival scenario, the tensions will be high. People will be bored because you will have to either wait somewhere for a long time or you have no other means of entertainment like electronics, your phone or whatever because of you have to consume to save on electricity. So a deck of cards can be very handy to entertain you and your group. And of course, you can hide things in this. For example, this is a deck of cards, and it can be handy to hide things here that you don't want people to find or take from you. For example, perhaps a robbery, perhaps a checkpoint, perhaps through security from police or security forces, or even at borders. So there are several things you can hide in here that you don't want other people to find because they can ask for your wallet, but if you have this, perhaps this will leave alone. So, for example, you can hide some money, always have some backup money in case you get robbed. You have a razor blade. This can even be taped to one of the cards, but can be handy if you are being taken hostage or kidnapped, and they will leave the deck of cards with you so you can keep busy that you will not bother your kidnappers too much, and in the hope, especially if you tape this on the inside of the deck of cards, perhaps they will not even find it if they are just pouring the cards out and putting it back in. So razor blades can be very handy of that. And also the reason why I put it in this kind of paper is that you will not cut yourself that easily. And of course, perhaps some ID cards, perhaps some how to say this, credit cards, or perhaps even your a chip with all your how to say this, SD card that you can hide in this. So it's also a good hiding spot. All right. Next thing is I would say is it's a way to relieve the situations and ease on the tensions. So, for example, if you are waiting for an evacuation, there are some other people that are stressed. Perhaps you want to make contact with them. Perhaps you want to make some relations that might be useful later on. A deck of cards can be helpful to learn other people, to know them, and create a little bit of a bond, a little bit of trust. Because if you play with someone cards, you can learn a lot from them. You can learn what also for like it's also a psychological investigation. If you play cards with someone that you don't know, you can learn a lot about how they play. Are they play or they play it safe? Do they play aggressive? Are they very greedy that they even perhaps cheat? That way you can know if you can trust somebody more, and all because of a game of cards. That can be very handy. So if you have a sleight hand, is it called that? Yeah, you know what I mean. If you are very handy with these, you can perhaps earn some money by doing some street hustle. If you are on an evacuation or perhaps as a refugee, and that way you can earn some a little bit of money if you are have a sleight of hand or whatever they're calling it. Um, there are also a deck of cards that have survival information on top of it. There are several websites and I think companies that sell them, and these contain this is like a small SIS survival book printed on the front of the cards in the middle, so that can be very handy to, for example, then here instead of this drawing, there will be information that can be helpful during survival situations, and you can learn that way, and you can also have a way to play cards. What they also have is, and this is something that they used in World War II, cards with maps on top of them. So there would be a card deck of a whole area of a map, and they will be printed on top of this, or they will be disguised behind this, that you can peel this open and have a card that way. This was usually in escaping kits, but there are also companies that will make cards, geographical maps that are inside of this. So if you go into a certain area, you can take the card, put them next to each other, and you will have a map. It's a little bit cumbersome, but if you don't have a map, this could be very useful and also hidden, especially if you. It can be dangerous to have a map during a war situation where if you go to a checkpoint and they will see you have a map, they can arrest you for a suspicion of being a spy or a resistance fighter. So yeah, if you have it on a deck of cards, that could be a little bit less dangerous to do that. All right. What is another thing that you can do with this? A pay debt system. As certain cards were used in the past during uh, certain chaotic and shitty defense situations, where cards were to be issued as a sort of collateral. What do I mean by that? I think it was in Spain or in France in the 17th or 18th century, there was a problem with paying the soldiers their wages. So what would happen in the time if soldiers would not get their wages? They would go on mutiny, or they would start to plundering to get their money in that way. And to stop that from their soldiers from mutinying, one of the French captains, I believe, used his deck of cards as a sort of pay debt system, because his cards were custom made, or they had a certain type of, because this is very specific to the area where I live, and that way nobody could just take a pair of other cards and say you owe me this. No, they said if one card stands for this amount of money, and the soldiers that were owed money, they would give these cards and they could give it back when the money arrived to pay out the soldiers. So that is also sort of collateral, or perhaps a way of pay debt system, a sort of I owe you card that is specific to the persons, that you can build sort of trust system that perhaps outsiders cannot be part of it. So that's a very handy way if you live in that sort of local society, so to say, or in that kind of thing. And of course, these are usually made out of carton. If you fold them up, crumble them a little bit, or start to rasp a little bit, then you can use them as kindle to start a fire. But yeah, there's nothing fun about a deck of cards where all the cards have been, where at least some cards have been burned, so to say. So it's more for an emergency situation. I think around. If you know any other survival uses for a deck of cards, please let me know in the comments. I'm always eager to learn. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and see you in the next video. Cheers!